nothing more DIY, especially in your case, than you know what, cooking. I know that you get into this stuff. So, what is your go-to dish or meal or whatever it is that you cook when when you're on your own or when you're doing it yourself?
Well, I mean, I've always enjoyed cooking. I can't cook a ton of stuff, but so when me and Amy first started dating, I was like, "You wait till I make some French toast," because I like making French toast, and there's a bit of an art to it, keeping it from getting soggy in the middle. And there's a lot of ways to do it. I would back when we raced in South Carolina, we would always go to the Huddle House instead of the Waffle House.
Oh, really?
Kind of
interesting decision.
I know, because I love Waffle House,
Yeah.
and that's my go-to. There's not even any Huddle Houses around here in North Carolina, but there were in South Carolina, and the Huddle House had the French toast, and
They do.
Waffle House doesn't.
I know about that.
And
Yep.
so I would go to the Huddle House after the race and eat there. There was a car on the racetrack too, sponsored by Huddle House, which made you want to go to support that. But anyway, I kind of half-heartedly hate admitting that, because
You did.
Yeah.
You just eased on into
But
that
anyway, so I loved making French toast, and I love eating it. I don't eat a ton of it these days, but still think I could probably cook a pretty decent French toast. Liver mush, I know I'm going to catch hell for that. My wife hates it. Ricky Stenhouse, big liver mush fan. Me and him talk about liver mush. That's
You were a
one thing we had in
big
common.
liver mush guy.
Yeah.
I
like
I've
it.
never even heard of it until
Right.
you brought it up.
Slice it thin, crispy, burn it.
I still want to know the secret, though, of the French
Put it
toast.
on
Come
mustard and bread. Sandwich. Liver mush sandwich. Mustard. Lots of mustard.
Okay.
Or I just eat it on a plate by itself with lots of mustard and skip the bread.
Sounds awful,
What's
but
the
keep going.
secret to the
I
French
know.
toast, though? Come on. What's the secret?
It's just when you mix the eggs and milk, you don't put it in there a lot. It just needs to sort of coat the outside. If you leave it in there even for a second too long, it soaks into the bread, and then the bread doesn't cook all the way through. You get a little bit of sogginess in the center.
Got it. Don't dunk it.
No,
Just
it's just to go. It just needs to coat the outside, and because you want it to still be a bread, not a mush in the middle.
you like your French toast. You look like somebody that dunks your French toast.
I leave it in there a little extra. And I use challah bread. That's
Yeah.
my secret right there.
Gotcha.
Oh.
Yeah, there's different breads.
Oh, yeah.
Make a
that
big
thick
difference.
bread, man.
Yeah. And other things I cook. Obviously on my Twitter bio and Instagram bio, I talk about barbecue. Over the last probably 5 years or maybe even more than that, I got interest in trying to smoke barbecue, and I think I liked it. I wanted to do it because it's such a time consuming, and the preparation takes days. Like you got to get this, where you buy the meat, the kind of meat you buy, and then spending a day or two sort of prepping the meat and brining it and marinating it, injecting it, and all the things that you can do. Making your own rubs and sauces and all that stuff, building and preparing and setting up the grill, setting this temperature, and all of it really reminded me of preparing my car during the week to go to the racetrack. When I race late models, you spent all week tinkering and playing, cleaning up the hauler, getting the truck serviced full of gas, and cleaning out the trash and cleaning up the interior of the truck, and then reorganizing the hauler and the trailer and all your stuff and getting your driver's suit ready and all that. It's just, you're just playing, piddling. But that's what barbecue is. And then you get to feed a bunch of people with it. And then when you have leftovers, you get to take leftovers up and down the road to your friends and relatives, which is fun. They love it. You walk in with hey, man, I got a bunch of brisket left over. Here, eat on this for a couple days. And especially when they eat it and they like it. And then it's not just brisket. It's ribs and pork butt and there's all kinds of different types of ribs, and there's just so many different variations and ways to do it, and you play and tinker and twist on things and tweak this and that and the other, and cook at different temperatures for different reasons. I just kind of like that technology side of it, the mechanics of it, and so that's kind of what I'm into now when I say cooking.
What I thought you was going to
Yeah.
say. Yeah, that was it.
But I mean, I'm gonna tell you what now, man. I can take a basic can of soup and I can turn that thing into something a little special. That's what I like to do.
Huh?
Yeah. So, well, Amy, I grill chicken breasts and then dice it all up, and I keep it for a couple of days, and I put that in soups.
Salads and
Well, if you take just a normal can of soup, like vegetable soup or anything, I mean, you can put any meat in it, and you can put any seasoning and stuff in it. You can take homemade salsa and put that in there. If you do a vegetable soup and put homemade salsa in it,
Never tried that.
and add chicken, grilled
Get
chicken.
more of a fiesta soup.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I like the. I don't. That's not really cooking,
No.
because you're not making
Well,
cooking.
It's doctoring.
It's doctoring. Cooking's kind of making things from scratch. My wife is an amazing cook. I mean, amazing. She can look on Pinterest and get a recipe, make it that night, and it's great. And we do. She knows I love buffalo, so she incorporates that into a lot of stuff that we eat. So
She
I
is
like-
good. I remember when she cooked for us all in Pocono. Remember that? Do you remember when we all stayed in that
Yeah,
house
yeah.
and she
Boy, man,
just
those
man,
are
we
some
came
good
home from the
days.
track and man, she had that meal. I mean, she had everything. There's all kinds of stuff. It was awesome.
Yep.
So yeah.
That smoking thing is my bucket list. That's my bucket list, like one of my biggest things
Well,
on there.
I'm no pro. I'm actually maybe the guy to give you the knowledge you need, because I'm a novice as well. Get a Traeger,
That's what you told me.
pellet grill. Start there. The hardest part about smoking is controlling the temperature, and especially on a windy day or anything like that. And if you're out there and that thing's smoking for 8 hours and it loses, temperature, it kills it. It's game over. And so, or it goes too high. Whatever, you could ruin. It could be ruined, and then you're like, why did that happen? I don't even know why that happened. Because there's, if you're doing this by yourself, get a pellet grill that controls the temp for you. That way you don't have to worry about that part, and you can you understand how to cook the meat. You got a reliable temperature. You can take that out of the equation, and then you just cook the meat, and then you can play with your recipe, and then you can play with how hot you're going or how low you're cooking. You can try different temperatures, you can try different injections, and you can see what tastes good, right? And then once you get that down and you really want to make it hard, get a grill that you have to control the temperature, and then you become a freaking professional barbecue.
There you go.
Which I don't want to go that far. I mean, I'd love to have a trailer with all that crap on it, like those guys have.
Those guys are in a league of their own.
It's just a little
They're-
bit. Yeah,
yeah.
you gotta have to have a guy, that all he does is the temp on the grill. Holy crap!
I got kids, man. We ain't got time for that.
Oh
do.
yeah.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah.
All right, listen, thank you to Valvoline for the segment. From high mileage rides that need that thick anti-wear film to newer engines that have carbon buildup, head over to Valvoline.com/Dale. That's Valvoline.com/Dale to find the product spec for your engine.
All right, are we live?
We are
All right,
live.
it's time for our Nationwide Ask Junior segment. Thank you, Nationwide, for sponsoring our program. Taking your questions on our Dirty Mo Media YouTube channel. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to follow all our social media handles, Dirty Mo Media, at Twitter and Instagram. What's the question, Leah?
First question's from John Duncan. Over the weekend, you tweeted out asking for code word suggestions for pitting. What other aspects of race strategy warrant code words or signals?
I don't really know. I really don't know. I mean, the code word for pit stops, that's sort of started right as I was getting out of the car. And it's really nothing that we've talked a ton about to the drivers. Obviously, there's some secrecy there that they want to keep and maintain. But I have seen drivers like Keselowski and other guys have maybe a quarterback wrist, where you see the quarterback has the plays and so forth. They have this in the ceiling of the car, something up there that they can read and look and see and communicate with their crew chief and understand, what's going on, what's being decided on, what's being called. So as far as I know right now for code, there's just pit stops. But, well, that's it. Back in when I used to race at Myrtle Beach, and I think I've told this story before, but when I used to race at Myrtle Beach, there was this guy that was kind of a, he's going to get lapped every week. He's not going to be run great, but he just loved being out there, loved racing, and he had the local Pizza Hut sponsoring his car.
Mm-hmm.
And we become pretty good friends with this guy, and we were running really good one night. We had a flat tire or something, or had a tire going down, and we ordered a pizza, is what we would call it. And he pull over on the back straightaway and bring out the caution so we could come in and get our tire changed. And so that we did it a couple times, not a lot, back in the day, mid-'90s, Myrtle Beach. And so later in my career, I would tell that story to TJ, and me and him would joke around, like, man, we need to order a pizza here.
This is during a cup race. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, him on
and
the
only
radio.
me and TJ knew what we were talking about.
Yeah.
And there was no real car that was going to pull over and give us a caution, but it was just a joke between the two of us because I had told him about that story from Myrtle Beach. So I'm sure there's codes being used that don't reference pit stops, that reference something else, that reference a strategy or, saving fuel. I'm sure there's codes for saving fuel that Brad Keselowski and Penske and those guys have to be able to know exactly how much they're saving. They don't want the competition to know. I mean, the most frustrating thing for me, there's a lot, but one thing that frustrated me is when we went to our digital radios. During practice we had a digital radio and then we had a regular radio, and I went from being a driver that we just said everything on the radio. Hey man, the car's too loose. Well, let's change this right rear spring. All right. Well, I mean, if you're loose and you're changing right rear spring, you're probably going to be taking spring out of it. I mean, everybody knew that, and anybody could scan anybody and listen to what they were doing. We went from that to don't say anything on the regular radio. Don't say anything. I don't even know why it's in the car. Everything's going to be said on the digital. And then they took the digitals away from us because NASCAR didn't like the fact that we weren't talking on the radio, that the radios were silent. They wanted the radio conversation to be on the radio so the fans that were buying these headsets and renting them at the racetrack could hear everything we were saying, because all of a sudden the renting the radio business tanked because the teams weren't talking on them. Yeah. They were using digitals. So the digitals went away. And then we went back to, so that had made we had gotten so used to using the digital and keeping our conversations private. Other teams didn't even know what balance issues other guys were having. Well, what's this guy saying? Well, he ain't saying nothing. I don't know if his car's tight or loose. And so we got so secret when the digitals went away. The crew chiefs, engineers still did not want us talking over the normal airway. And so now this is what we have. We have codes and drivers not talking on the radios until they get back to the garage and out of the car and can talk one-on-one, face-to-face with the crew chief and debrief after practice. There's so much stuff that we used to say on the radios that we don't say anymore. They don't want us saying anymore. Not even general conversation about the balance of the car. We went from talking, like we go out and qualify, and you would talk during the lap. But surely after the lap, as soon as you got the checkered, man, I got a little tight here and a little loose there, and I did this, and I messed this up, and the car did that. We went from that to don't say a word till you get back to your pit stall and get out. Don't mention nothing about the balance of your car or talk about it so that someone else might hear. If the track's trending one way or another, we don't want anyone to know it. And so that was kind of frustrating as a driver because I really didn't care if anybody knew what my car was doing or what I was dealing with. And I hated not being able to communicate, and use the radio to do it. We've been doing it for that way for 15 years. I went long. Sorry.
That's all we have.
Asked you in your.
That's all we have today. Yeah.
Just one question.
The question of the
just
week.
Kidding. Kevin Hall writes in on YouTube, and he wants to know if you could be a spotter for one race, who would you want to spot for?
I would never want to spot. Spotting to me has become something that you would pluck anyone out of the grandstands to do, or ask a friend that, hey, man, we need a spotter. Shoot, who can do that? Mike, you mind spotting? All you got to do is just go up there and call the wrecks.
Yep.
It happened to me.
All you had to do is stand up there and just, if there's a wreck, tell me.
Yeah, that's it.
That's all you needed.
Road courses usually.
Right. And so it went from that to really the spotter is like that quarterback on the sideline with the clipboard. He's the communicator between the driver and the crew chief. He's doing more than just watching for wrecks. And I'm not a spotter. We've got spotters on our other shows, Door Bumper Clear with TJ Majors and Spotter Brett, that could really tell you the true, everything that encompasses their job. But we went from just getting somebody up there to call the wrecks to a real communicator, a guy calling the plays or being the offensive coordinator up there. Obviously, he's not doing the crew chief's job, but he's extremely assisting the crew chief in seeing what other teams are doing, strategies that other teams are doing, where the drivers are racing and what lines they're running, and they're just responsible for so much more. And that's why they're so valuable. That's why they're getting paid what they're getting paid, and that's why they're sought after individuals between certain teams. And that's why you say, man, this guy's a great spotter, and this guy, maybe he's not so great, is because of that difference in their ability to communicate and help and assist not only just the driver with wrecks and what's going on around him, but the crew chief, the team, with what he's seeing from that vantage point. Because I always felt like that one day crew chiefs are going to be in the spotter stand or in a suite. I feel like that, and I feel like that one day, maybe, it might be 10 years from now or whatever, that a crew chief won't be down there on the pit box anymore. He'll be up higher with a bigger vantage point to be able to call and orchestrate that race.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
It's like a coordinator,
exactly.
like in football. You know, they sit up in the
and the car chief will be managing the individual roles. Like if somebody needs to be reprimanded or a change needs to be made on a tire changer or anything physical needs to be done in that pit, the car chief will be responsible for that. But the crew chief he'll need that vantage point, and it's such a better view of it, and he can see really how the race is playing out from a broader vision.
Gary Neal Owens writes in. He wants to know, who were the 4 drivers Mark Martin said weren't intimidated by Dale Sr.?
Ooh. Oh, I remember.
Gary Ballou was one of them.
Gary Ballou?
Who was it? It was.
I didn't remember him saying the other 3.
Yeah, it was in the book, and we brought it up. All right, it was Jeff Bodine.
Yep.
Dale.
Tim Richmond.
Tim Richmond.
Yep.
Gary Ballou. Who was the 4th?
Was it Rusty?
No, I don't think
Darryl?
it was. No.
Him? Mark?
No. I don't remember.
Great question.
Yeah, I don't remember. But there's an answer to that.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, Matthew's going to quit producing.
Stop producing.
Screw the show. We're going to go find the answer to this. Get out his hot shoe
What's
book.
the next one?
All right, we'll move on to the next one. You look that up. Wonderbread says, putting aside all humility for a second, what is one race performance of yours that you wish was given more credit?
I thought Wonderbread was going to come in here and tell us about making French toast. What was the question? I thought it was like Wonderbread's real account.
Yeah,
No,
you don't know what you're talking about, Dale.
That would be really cool.
Let me give you a hint, Dale, on how to make that French toast.
What is one race performance of yours that you wish you had been given more credit for?
Oh, man. All of them. Right? Yeah. I think that's the tough part about it. So anytime you're like, hey, man, that one race, we did X, Y, and Z, you feel like that's someone else's job. And for me to sit here and say, yeah, I wish this race, people really appreciated it, something here that I did. It feels boastful. It's uncomfortable. And if I told you one, I'd change my mind 5 minutes from now. I think one of the coolest things that I ever saw, and I was in the car leading the race and winning it, and but and this ain't something really that I did, but the Xfinity race, I think it was 2003 maybe, at Daytona, when we broke the draft and we drove away by ourselves. That had never happened at a plate race, and never has happened since at a plate race. We had this bright pink DEI Menards car, and man, the handling was so critical, and all our cars, all of them, everybody's cars were driving so bad. My car was sideways loose and almost hit the fence. I mean, I got to running the top against the wall to keep it from spinning out, because up there, you can get that cushion of air in between you and the wall and kind of put a little side force in the car. And a couple times I felt like I was going to slap the right rear quarter up against the fence and cost us the race, even leading by like 10 or 12 seconds. But I got out of the car, and still even today I watched that race, and I just like, when I got out of the car, I was like, I can't believe that we broke the draft, like, and drove off.
You had a straightaway on them.
It was bigger than that.
It was amazing.
It was huge.
One car out there by itself, just
I couldn't
pulling
believe
away
it.
from everybody else.
Because handling was so important. I caught guys, and they were plowing, lifting at Daytona, like big time lifting, and slow and good cars, like top 10 cars, lapping them. And I still today don't know how that happened. It was just an incredible combination between the heat, the surface being so worn out, the tire we had, and those cars, the Xfinity cars, just are a little bit of a handful. And so that, I guess, if there's one race where I thought, it's kind of, I don't know that blows people away like it blows me away.
But you know why?
Why?
Yeah, I mean, this is an assumption, but I don't think that you would ever get credit for anything at a restrictor plate track because people just assume that there was something done to that car.
Yeah.
I did when I was watching it.
Yeah.
I was like,
Well, I promise
I
you.
don't know if them Uris did, but
Yeah.
my God, I mean, you're not supposed to be able to do that.
Well, I'll tell you the best advice that I could ever give somebody getting involved in racing is don't build your car by the rule book. Go to the racetrack and watch the class that you're going to be racing in and build your car by looking at the cars that are on the track. So if you ever think, if you're watching a race and you think you're watching all the cars on the racetrack are legal, you're crazy. So, because I'd made that mistake one time. Me and my buddies built a street stock. We built it strictly by the rule book. We never went to the racetrack and saw the cars that we were going to compete against. We built it by the book, and we showed up and were appalled at how far off we were. And so that's that's a good lesson in just because I was trying to talk to another buddy of mine about getting his son in racing, and I was like, don't build the car by the rule book. Go to the racetrack and watch the cars and walk around the garage and look at the cars that are going to be in that class, and you'll see a big difference between that and what's in the rule book.
All right, guys, I think that's all we have time for today.
All
Thanks
right.
for tuning in. Ash Jr. presented by Nationwide.
Appreciate it, everybody. The show will be out later tonight, and obviously don't forget you can listen to the entire hour and a half podcast, roughly hour and a half, with Dale Jarrett.
What podcast were
What
you on
podcast
today?
are you-
Yeah, I'm just saying roughly. It's roughly an hour and a half. You can listen to the whole podcast. Will be out tonight. Obviously, we have the TV show on NBCSN, 5 p.m. on Tuesdays. Thank you.